Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's event. Tonight we're going to be having Tufts Entrepreneurs in Fitness, brought to you by the Tufts Entrepreneurial Network, which is the alumni group of TEC. We're bringing it tonight in partnership with the Office of Alumni Relations at Tufts. My name is Iggy Molliver. I lead product and investments at Remedy Product Studio, which is a very different kind of studio than the ones we're going to be discussing tonight. We're building the next generation of great digital products with startups and enterprise companies, and work a lot with fitness companies, which is what brought us here tonight. I'm also the national chair of the Tufts Entrepreneurial Network, and I'd like to thank a lot of the folks who helped make tonight possible. So firstly, our esteemed panelists and moderator, all of you for attending, and a group of organizers including Brittany Sokoloff, Amy McDonald, the 10 steering committee, the TEC Advisory Board, and the Office of Alumni Relations. So firstly, I just learned like an hour ago that today is National Entrepreneurs Day. Nobody brought me flowers or anything, but I guess I'm going to wish you all a happy National Entrepreneurs Day, and tell you a bit about 10 before we kick it over to our panel. So the Tufts Entrepreneurial Network exists to connect alumni in tech and the entrepreneurship world, help corporate jumbos transition to the startup world, and work with the Entrepreneurship Center at Tufts to enrich the student entrepreneurship experience. We put on events like these and have been putting on events, digital events throughout the pandemic. All of you will be invited into our community, which includes a Slack channel where you can continue the discussion with tonight's panelists. There's a dedicated channel for fitness entrepreneurship, thanks to tonight. And keep an eye out for an event we have coming in December, which is going to be more of a networking night / holiday party while we're all sitting at home, hopefully, having a drink by a warm fire. Tonight's event has special significance for me because at Remedy Product Studio, we really built a reputation on the fitness industry. We worked on building early products for ClassPass, Ziamo, Every Mother, and we've seen those companies have to adapt quite a bit over the last 8 months, whether that's adapting their offerings or providing more benefits to the community. The challenges facing gyms and boutique fitness studios over the last 8+ months have been steeper than incline 15 on a treadmill. We've watched as brands have built and expanded online platforms, and we've all done our best to stay healthy and sane during an otherwise insane time. As we've managed our own personal health, these jumbos you're going to hear from tonight, these fitness entrepreneurs, are jumping each of these hurdles and trying to provide the best experience for their clients, users, and members. So I'll give a brief introduction to our panel and to our esteemed moderator. So we have Nicole Brooks here, who's a creative project manager at Peloton, Beth Bishop, CEO of the Phoenix Effect, and Dana Santis. She's a pro sports mobility coach, a CNN health expert, and the author of Practical Solutions for Back Pain Relief, which I definitely needed as a track runner at Tufts. And the panel is being moderated by Julian Barnes, who I've known for several years now through the fitness industry. Julian has a BA in history from Tufts and a JD from UNC. Not to date Julian, but he has spent the last 4 decades in the sports, fitness, and wellness world, although you'd never guess it by looking at him. He's led marketing at Leverage Agency, Velocity Sports Performance, and Oasis Day Spa. He spent 8 years leading Body Local, and he currently serves as COO of Melt Method and is the founder of Boutique Fitness Summit, which educates, connects, and supports the boutique fitness industry by conducting trainings and workshops, sharing proven business methods from thought leaders, and hosting roundtable discussions for studio owners, about 10,000 of whom comprise his membership. So I'm going to kick it over to Julian. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you to all of our participants. Feel free to ask questions in the QA button, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. And please join us afterwards on Slack for more discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Iggy, and welcome to this roundtable panel discussion. Welcome to all my fellow jumbos. Let's begin with a little more detailed introductions from our panelists, and we are going to start alphabetically. Beth Bishop from Los Angeles, tell us about you and Phoenix Effect.
Awesome, thank you so much for having me. I'm a 06 graduate, and I was a member of the swim team when I was at Tufts. I've been the owner and CEO of the Phoenix Effect, which is a boutique strength and conditioning studio in Los Angeles, California since 2014. We do a very holistic approach to fitness that combines the latest sports performance, periodized training with mindset and nutrition coaching. And we have online and offline programs. And kind of the cool thing that we do is we adapt different sports training programs to different cycles. So every 6 weeks, you'll train like a different sport. And we try to make it really fun to help our clients level up inside and outside of the gym.
Awesome, fantastic, thank you. And Nicole Brooks.
Hi, thanks for having me as well. I am a creative project manager at Peloton Interactive. I graduated a history major BA in 2016. I was a Tufts women's basketball player at the time for all 4 years while I was at Tufts, which was a great time. At Peloton, if you haven't heard of Peloton, to give a little upfront, basically as a creative project manager at Peloton, we help make sure that we're working on marketing and creative assets that go along with our mission, which is to democratize fitness to anyone and everywhere, that they can upgrade their workouts along with our world-class instructors. So with that comes a lot of tech coordination and cross-functional with our teams in the production studio, as well as with our tech teams to deliver our app and our hardware. So yeah, that's kind of what I do there.
And where are you based?
I'm based in New York City currently.
Fantastic, thank you. And Dana Santis.
Hi.
Tell us about yourself.
Well, again, thank you for having me and welcoming me into this great panel. I'm meeting a lot of you guys for the first time. I graduated a long time before you, which was 1998. And since then, I've spent almost 2 decades now working as a breathing, mobility, and mind-body coach in professional sports. So I work exclusively with professional sports teams, and I also work on contract with the military, law enforcement, and other first responder agencies. In addition to that, as was mentioned before, I did write the book, Practical Solutions for Back Pain Relief, a couple of years ago. And I also act as a contributing writer for CNN Health since I think about 2014. In addition to that, I am the inventor of the Mobility Maker Bench. It's an awesome, really versatile piece of equipment that's great for performance centers and home gyms. And it's produced here in the US with Sorinex exercise equipment. And also pre-pandemic, I had the privilege of traveling all over the world and speaking on topics related to athlete performance and overall health and wellness. And thankfully, because of Zoom, I still get to speak all over the world, but I don't get on many airplanes these days, as most of the people here probably don't either.
Awesome, thank you. So as Iggy mentioned, I am the co-founder of a company called Boutique Fitness Solutions based in New York City. And we provide education, and we're an education and digital media company for boutique fitness businesses nationwide. And by that, we are providing business management training and support to studio owners like Beth Bishop all over the US and throughout North America. And we have a decent footprint in Australia as well. Pre-COVID, my company produced large conferences. Remember those days when 500 people could gather in a hotel room and you'd have keynote speakers and trade shows and exhibitors? Well, that's what we did. Boutique Fitness Summit did in 2018 and 2019. I'm based in New York City, and our flagship event is always in New York City on the last Friday of April. So this year, I will never forget, February 28th was a Friday night, and our big event was the end of April, so a good 8 weeks away. My business partner said to me, you know, we may have to consider canceling our conference in April. This is on February 28th. I'm in New York City, and there wasn't a single positive case of COVID in New York State on February 28th. And when my business partner mentioned that to me, my response was kind of a WTF. What are you talking about? There's not a single case of COVID in the state. Why are we be thinking about canceling an event 8 weeks away? So that weekend, I did a deep dive into LinkedIn comments and saw what all the other conference producers were saying. And by Monday, which would have been March 3rd, still before a single positive case of COVID in New York State, we realized that we were going to have to cancel our largest event of the year on March 3rd. So that was my coming to Jesus moment about COVID was getting ready to change my life dramatically. What were each of your first moments of realizing that things done changed, as Biggie said? Beth.
Well, my father is a physician at the Mayo Clinic, and so we had been watching cases in Europe, talking to some of his colleagues in Europe. Kind of around the end of February, we were chatting, and he was like, I think that there's going to be a nationwide lockdown. I would really start planning for it. And I was like, really? You really think so? And I remember having our team meeting maybe 3 or 4 days before the lockdown happened. And I sat down with my staff and I was like, well, I think that we might be going through like a couple weeks of lockdown. And this might put us back a little bit. And so, yeah, we really thought it was going to be 2 weeks to a month. We were wrong.
Just a little bit. And Dana, when did you realize that things were about to change for you?
Oh man, I was in the middle of spring training. I feel like now I'm based in Florida. I don't think I mentioned that. So half of MLB spring training happens in Florida, which is one of the reasons that I moved here. But prior to that, I had flown to LA to speak at the Perform Better conference. And that was towards the end of January, but we hadn't heard anything yet about that. And so I was planning out, the rest of my schedule after spring training. And it was like the first week of March when I was scheduled to go to the Phillies the next morning. I had just been there the day before, and they called me and they said, hey, wait, they're starting to limit like media. I have to find out if you're going to be able to come in. And again, didn't think anything of it. I thought, okay, it's just a hurdle to get over. But spring training ended up shutting down for everyone. It wasn't just a matter of they were limiting staff. It just completely shut down. It was so odd. It was just so odd. But, here in Florida, I think it was very different when I started to talk to my friends in New York City. One of my friends, Don Saladino, you might know him, Beth, owns Drive 495. And
Sure.
Well, actually, it's Nicole who's in New York. Remember, I just met everybody.
I'm in New York. I know Drive 495.
Right. Okay. So in talking to Don, I realized you guys were all taking it really seriously. I mean, it was just a mess in professional sports. We didn't know what was happening. And as I mentioned, I have contracts with the military and law enforcement. I was scheduled later in March to go out to Fairfax, Virginia, and that stopped. It was just nuts.
So when spring training shut down, which was March 11th, for all sports shut down March 11th, what did you do next?
We had a lot of Zoom meetings to try to figure out what do we do next. And it probably took because they didn't know, when was the season going to start? When we were kind of in that situation that Beth described, where it's like, okay, a couple of weeks of this, and then the world will go back to normal. So it took a couple of weeks before we started to integrate Zoom sessions. And I also work in, I'm giving the example of MLB because that was, spring training was happening right then, but I work with other teams and other sports. and would generally be flying to them. And so now it was talking to everybody, like, what are we going to do? And in the end, it ended up being that
Let me pause that. Let's save that story. I know what's coming. We'll get
Okay,
to that
yeah.
in a second. So Nicole, you joined Peloton only a few weeks before COVID. Tell us what your first 3 weeks were like in the office, and then how things unfolded in March.
Yeah, so I feel pretty lucky that I was able to meet my own team in person before we had to go fully remote. We basically got 3 weeks in, basically got a notification that, hey, we're just going to work from home tomorrow on a Friday just to test the systems to make sure that it works. At the time, as Peloton is a startup, so we are currently still located in 2 WeWork buildings in New York that are a few blocks from each other. So if you were at the main building and the creative and marketing team sat on another building, we were already used to kind of Zooming each other from other conference rooms. Little did we know that we would be doing that from the comfort of our homes for quite a few months. So it was kind of like, all right, we're just going to test the systems. And then we didn't go back. So we're kind of, for Peloton, we kind of were like, oh, wow, didn't know this was going to last this long or happen for this long. And then obviously we saw a big demand for bikes as people started to realize that their gyms weren't going to open and they weren't going to be able to have equipment. So our equipment quickly sold out. We offer a lot of accessories and stuff like that. So yeah, basically.
Remember when that spike occurred from, again, we're talking March 11th to March 16th, everything shut down. In New York City, all gyms shut down on Monday, March 16th. The state shut down the following week. So like the 21st, 22nd, 21st was a Saturday. So when do you remember seeing just a massive spike through the Peloton system going crazy?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I wasn't looking at the numbers, but I just knew from the requests we were getting from our marketing team, they were starting to increase because with a lot of new members comes educational components about like what Peloton is, what the community is. So we started to get that spike. Also, just as a kind of inside baseball situation, pre-COVID, it would take you about an average, if you were in New York City, it would take you an average of 10 days to get a Peloton bike or tread. So you can schedule your queue or whenever it would be delivered. I think at one point in COVID, and don't quote me on what date it was, I think people were waiting at least 3+ months just because of how we would get people in the queue and with our delivery teams and making sure that our supply chain was in the right order. So that just gives you a kind of idea of, we love to give a really good member experience, but the demand was so high that we had to have people wait a lot longer for products that would usually take them at least maybe 2 weeks at the most to receive.
So for each of you, how have your businesses grown or contracted or changed since COVID? Beth?
Well, we were kind of lucky at the beginning because we started to plan at the very end of February for a shutdown. And I kind of had a feeling that products would be really hard to find, like Nicole was talking about. So we pivoted really fast and we made our own on-demand workout program with resistance bands and sandbags later on, because we wanted to find the cheapest equipment that would be the most readily available, so we could still give people like a really good like strength workout, because that's kind of what we're known for. So initially we were able to, like, as soon as the lockdown happened, we were initially able to keep all of our members. Maybe there was like 3 or 4 that froze and that was about it. Whereas my competitors kind of floundered and they kind of haphazardly put together Zooms, and we already had a full Zoom schedule. We already had members with equipment. We had an on-demand program ready to rock. So that I'm very grateful for, that we had those few weeks to plan. And you know,
let's explore that. Let's not rush over that, because you just mentioned that a lot of your competitors didn't. And from an entrepreneurial standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, what you said that you did isn't the norm.
Right.
So what was where did the inspiration or the motivation or where did the idea come from that we need to go to Zoom, we need to sell equipment to our members, or we need to tell them to buy equipment? I know for a fact that there were a lot of studio owners who had a deer in the headlight look for a month or so. And so you acted immediately. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, what do you think was the genesis for your taking action versus keeping your head stuck in the sand while the virus is washing over you? Where does that come from?
Well, I think for starters, like Los Angeles is probably the most competitive fitness market in the world next to like New York City. So it's adapt or die out here. And like, I looked at it and I kind of sat down and I was like, you know, the rest of the world is really shutting down. There's no reason why that's not going to come to here. It's already happening. So I kind of went into, let's use this as an opportunity mode and figure out how we're going to pivot and adapt and completely change our business model overnight so we can keep this going. You know,
How did you know what to do? There's no playbook for this.
I mean, you have to look at everything through the client's perspective, right? So when I was brainstorming, I sat down and I thought, you know, what would our athletes need? You know, they're going to need a lot of mental support. So we set up, you know, Zoom happy hours, little big team huddles where we sat down and just, you know, if they had questions for me or what to do in the programs, we had those systems set up in advance, because you know that people are going to need extra support during a trying time. We knew that, you know, if there was a shutdown, there would have to be at-home workouts. So we thought, okay, well, if people want to get really solid workouts, they're not going to go and buy $500 worth of dumbbells and they're not going to be ready. They're not going to be readily available. So we're like, what's the next best thing? Resistance bands. Great. So I just had to look at it through like a very realistic like perspective and say, here's probably the problems that are going to happen, and here's some good solutions. Let's try these out. Let's see how it goes.
Awesome. So you identified a problem, you came up with a few solutions, you planned ahead, and you just executed.
Yep. And we pivoted and, you know, nothing was perfect at first, but we did a lot of member outreach, had a lot of conversations, a lot of surveys, and we made it work. And that's why we're still open.
And that is not to be understated, because there are, by some measures, and I think this estimate is low, at least 3,000 fitness facilities nationwide that have closed. That's your gym, your studio, any modality, yoga, etc. So for you to still be open, and for perspective, Nicole said she works at a startup. We kind of all wink at that, you know, billion-dollar valuation startup.
Quote unquote.
Exactly. Do you have any investors, Beth?
I don't.
Okay,
nope.
So do you have a business partner?
Nope, it's all me. I bought all my partners
you
out.
Completely own it. So you own the company the gym by yourself. Did you consult with anybody when you were jumping into action, or did you just do it?
I mean, I do have like a business mastermind group that I'm a part of. And they did a few Zooms that were really helpful. But I think everybody was just kind of figuring it out all at once. And yeah, I also have just like a really rock star team they're very smart, very capable. And we had a lot of great team discussions, and we were able to really come up with a really great plan. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So Dana, we're back in spring training. It's the middle of March. You realize you're not going to the Phillies and you're not flying out west to see your other clients. How has your business grown or changed as a result of COVID?
Well, you know, my business relied a lot on the plans of these teams, because I mean, as much as I'd love to say that, you know, I was able to pivot like Beth, I do want to tell you my story, but That's so impressive. That is so impressive. And I'm just so happy that you were able to do that. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in LA, and I know what it's like out there when you talk about it being competitive, and gyms and restaurants going up and down constantly, you know, opening and closing. That's amazing. So you go. That's so awesome. But spring training, yeah, it shut down, and we were all left with the deer in the headlights. So I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. It was like, okay. Good news is, personally, we had just moved into a new house and like just moved in and gotten barely settled. We hadn't set up our garage gym, but we had all the equipment and everything. They had just put the flooring in because we have a 3-car garage gym at home. So we were so lucky because we hadn't planned ahead. It's just, we already were living that lifestyle. So, so the first couple of weeks, it was like, wow, you know, of all the places to be in lockdown, we're in our dream house with our 3-car garage gym. Not so bad. And then reality set in as I start talking to all these teams. And what ended up being very cool about this was, as you know, the players all had to go home. They were trying to deal with not knowing what was going to happen with their season, particularly in MLB, which was such a mess. You know how long it took them to negotiate a deal to figure out what to do. And in the meantime, all these athletes, people tend to think about professional athletes, forget that they're human beings. They were reeling the same way we were. And, you know, their livelihoods were up in the air. And so what was really cool was that through these Zooms, we were able to get all of these guys who couldn't be together as a team, in terms of their actual lifts and their programs. And they all have different programs. They were kind of, not that they were on their own. I certainly don't want to make it seem like their strength coaches, you know, left them high and dry. They weren't on their own, but they were having to go through their programs kind of individualized and check in with the strength coaches. But in terms of, even though a lot of the teams, I do work with the athletes individually, we were doing our breathing and mobility sessions on Zoom. And I had way more buy-in than I normally would with teams, because the guys were showing up because they got to see each other. And it was awesome. The energy was awesome, and so important. And I never felt more valuable in so many different ways. And I can give an example too. Like I also started working with teams that I hadn't worked with before as well. But in the NBA, in one of the sessions with the Timberwolves, for those of you who are familiar with the NBA, Carl Anthony's mom, a player for the Timberwolves, his mom ended up dying of COVID. And during the session, his mom was in a coma in the hospital, and he couldn't be with her. So he's on Zoom with us, and he's got his phone FaceTiming with the nurse who's who has his mom on the screen. And we all said a prayer for his mom and hello to his mom. And so that certainly sticks with me. But again, as this experience where we're all together in this, and I don't want to end on that note though, because that's a downer for sure.
It sounds like your business has exploded because of COVID. Is that accurate?
I don't want to say exploded, because I did already have these contracts. It's just kind of managing it, figuring out a way to manage it. But on a high note, the cool thing was with the Lightning, who I had worked with since 2011, we ended up doing twice a week sessions, which during that time of year we wouldn't have been. It would have been far more sporadic. So twice a week doing sessions. And if you follow the NHL, you know how that turned out. We won the Stanley Cup. So,
Lightning. So the Lightning won because of your mobility services.
No, they did not. No, I'm not saying that at all. I am not. We just had some fun times together twice a week.
All right. Let's take our first question from our audience. Dasha asks, where do you see the future of fitness in each of your niches? So we have connected fitness, we have boutique fitness, and Dana, how would you define your niche?
It's professional sports, most, I
Okay.
mean, it is, and military and first responders and law enforcement.
Okay, so how, let's go back to the exact question. What do you see, where do you see the future of fitness in each of your niches, starting with you, Dana?
Well, it's not an easy answer, but because I don't have an answer, it's an easy answer. This is still all up in the air, because remember, I work with multiple teams. I'm not a staff member on a particular team, so I'm as they're trying to figure out, you know, are they going to have, will they have respective bubbles again? I may not be in those bubbles because I can't go from bubble to bubble to bubble, right? And now that it's like the off season in MLB, I mean, ironically, tomorrow I'm going to get a COVID test so I can have my results back so I can start going in to the Yankees to see some of the off season players because their off season facility is down here in Tampa. And so hopefully, if all goes well, I'll start going in there on Friday. But, you know, I have to get the COVID test. And then we're doing the same thing so I can start working with the Lightning again, because their season's all weird, right? Right now, the season should be happening, but yet it just ended. And so now they're talking about either, I think last I heard it was like the beginning of January, they would start the NHL season. But everything's up in the air. So I don't really have an answer for you.
Understood. Nicole, what is the future of connective fitness? You get to speak for all of Peloton right now.
Oh boy. I think one of the things that we're looking to really make, and it's a part of our mission statement, is to make it more accessible to more folks. Obviously, with Peloton, the first thing that comes to mind is our bike and our tread, which are pricey items, I would say, that not the average American could probably afford, even with financing options. So things that we're looking to really push and spread in the market is our digital app, which has seen a huge increase during COVID of offering things where you don't need any equipment, or you can even use your own equipment that you have, like your own treadmill or at your gym, to take our classes or to experience our content that way. One of the big things that we just announced last week was our partnership with Beyonce, which we gifted 2-year digital memberships to 10 HBCUs in the US. So to start opening and going into communities that may not have that accessible price point to our products and getting it lower. So we've actually been able to drop some of our hardware as well as we put more products into market. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to, is making us more accessible so more people can enjoy our content and get a good workout in.
For anyone who might not be familiar with HBCU, do you want to explain that?
Yeah, sure. So HBCU is a historically Black college or university in the US. There's like the big four, which is Morehouse, Spelman, Hampton, and I'm missing one. Spelman, Hampton, Morehouse.
Vice President-elect graduate of
Howard University. How could I forget the real HU, as they say? Apologies for anyone who may be an alumni of there, but we've partnered with a few other ones in addition to that list. Couldn't partner with all. There are actually several and a few smaller ones. Bennett College as well as included, an all-women's Black college. So we actually partnered with Beyonce. It's been in the works for a long time, and we're finally able to announce it. So that's kind of one of the initiatives that we have as a company, to see where we can offer more accessible points and get more different diversity of the communities into our own Peloton community.
Awesome. Fantastic. Beth, you get to speak for the entire boutique fitness industry. What is the future of boutique fitness? First of all, how do you define boutique fitness?
I define it as like smaller studios, not like big box gyms that are mostly open gyms. I would define it too as a lot mostly class based. So it's not just it's results based if you do it right? So it's not just classes, but solutions and results. I think this is really our time, to be honest. It's the most exciting time to be a boutique fitness studio owner. First and foremost, I think we have a huge advantage over big box gyms for safety. right? So we can control the number of people in our class. We can really distance. We can have people wipe down their equipment. So our safety procedures are so much better than just people running around a big gym. I think also we have the power to really show up for people and really build community in new ways. Kind of like what Dana was saying, like how she was able to like be that higher level of support and have people show up to things that they normally wouldn't have, or be more committed. I think we can really do that with these small communities. So it's really a cool time. I think that if you do it right and if you put your clients first and you stay very connected to them and keep providing them really great service and really great solutions to their problems, I think it can be amazing.
So someone listening to you right now with all that positive energy exuding from you might be confused by what you say versus what their experience is. Now, I'm in New York City where group fitness has been closed since March 16th.
Yep.
You're in Los Angeles. So, and my understanding is in-studio classes are currently prohibited. Is that correct?
That's correct. Well, indoors. So we're out in
Indoors.
the parking lot. We've called it garden party, and we planted plants and we made it fun. We do have the luxury of nice weather, but you know, it does get pretty cold here in the morning. It's like 40 degrees in the morning.
70,
Yeah.
72.
You know, it's cold. It's relatively cold. So I think people are just grateful they can work out right now and do something and be around people in a safe environment.
But even in Los Angeles, you're the exception. So what are you seeing with other studios? I know I've spoken to other studio owners who have a different perspective than yours. What are you seeing with your peers and your competitors who weren't as savvy as you?
I think it all comes down really to mindset. If you look at this whole situation and you go, woe is me, this is so hard, everything is being taken away from me, you're not going to have an easy time pivoting or seeing the opportunity in something like this. I always wanted to make some kind of on-demand program, have more support. Like we made a 30-day mobility challenge for our members. I probably would have procrastinated on that before had I not done that. We just did a challenge called Abpocalypse, but half of that challenge was all about mindset and thinking positively and working through limiting beliefs. And I think this whole quarantine was such a great pause, and I think a lot of people really were more open to looking within. So yeah, if you had kind of a crap attitude, things are probably going to go not that great for you. Did my business take a hit? Yeah. Are we bouncing back from it? Totally. Are we going to be on top pretty soon? Yes.
So I'm going to invoke my moderator privileges and add that in my experience, the number one reason why fitness studios throughout the country have closed is because of their landlord relationship. Mm-hmm. If you have a great landlord who was willing to negotiate with you, reduce your rent, be flexible, then it gave the business owner a chance to survive. If your landlord was inflexible, 9 out of 10 times, those are the studios in your neighborhood that you might have read about that closed. And not just studios. During COVID, we have suffered bankruptcies from New York Sports, which is also Boston Sports Club and Washington Sports Club. They're called Town Sports International, bankrupt. Gold's Gym filed for bankruptcy. 24-Hour Fitness filed for bankruptcy. Yoga Works filed for bankruptcy. What do they all have in common? They were all struggling pre-COVID with a business model that was not engaging their members. What else do they have in common? Massive debt liabilities because of all of their leasing situation. So here we have Dana delivering a lot of her programming now online through Zoom. Peloton is the leader of Connected Fitness, and Beth is outdoors. and online. So the three panelists tonight have business models that are not solely dependent on brick and mortar. So the question that one of our audience members asked, what's the future of fitness? Many people believe it is a hybrid business model, combination of in-person, brick and mortar, and online. We have another question. Have you seen anything lately that was innovative? That was an innovative take on fitness and wellness services paid for by employers and provided by third-party companies. Let me repeat that. Have you seen anything lately that was an innovative take on fitness and wellness services paid for by the employers and provided by third-party companies? Nicole, you're shaking your head. Do you have an answer for us?
Yeah, I know from our perspective for Peloton, I think a lot of companies are looking to, especially during COVID, kind of give some benefits to their employees that they might not necessarily have, that helps with your mental well-being as well as your physical well-being. So I know that a lot of companies are kind of looking to see if they can partner. I know in the past, of course, maybe your employer offered discounted membership to an Equinox gym or something like that. Now companies are actually looking towards Peloton to see if they can partner and offer a part of their employee benefits package, a digital membership, or maybe a discounted hardware, which could be a bike or a tread that would be included in that package. And what's really cool with that is that it can create a community of, within your employers, you can compete with your coworkers on, fitness challenges, which is kind of weird to think of like, it's kind of like we have the office softball team. Instead this week, it's like, let's see if the IT team can beat the HR team in how many miles they put in on the bike, or let's all join in on a ride at this certain time, or join this yoga class together. So it's just another way through fitness that people can bond. And so a lot of even gyms can do this, and as well as obviously Peloton can. But if you have that on demand and there's a local business, it's definitely an opportunity to give them a discounted rate and also build that membership community too as well. So that's a big point of opportunity that we're seeing coming up.
There's several other national companies that are doing what Peloton is doing, and those include GymPass and PureFit and Zamo, and these are companies that essentially create a network of fitness providers like Beth Studio, and then they negotiate agreements with employers. So the days of an employer negotiating special membership rights with one gym, those days are gone. Now the employer is being pitched by GymPass, Zamo, and with PureFit. And so when you are an employee of Goldman or Verizon or Acme Roadrunner Company, there's a chance that on day one, when you get your employee benefits package, it includes a membership to a company like PureFit, ClassPass, GymPass. And so that's one of the ways in which employers are subsidizing their employees' exercise habits. And the employee has more options. Rather than having one gym membership, one person might like yoga, another person might like running or boxing or spinning. And so these networks give the employees access to all of that. We have a question. What are some general topics or skills someone should have to thrive in the fitness industry post-quarantine? Well, the assumption there is that we know when post-quarantine is going to be. I think that's probably 6 to 9 months away. But question is, let's go back to it. Lost the question.
Julian, I think I have an interesting
Go ahead, Dana.
take on this. I was thinking about this, and also I was thinking that I in some ways I am the third party that the employer was bringing in, where I had other teams reaching out to me in terms of the last question. the teams were paying to have me be available to the athletes as they were all over the place. So, but in terms of like looking at the future, when you don't have this one business, if you're an individual fitness entrepreneur, which I guess I would fall into that category, I think one of the things that didn't make me concerned when the pandemic hit, at least not for my business, was that I don't have my eggs in just one basket. I mean, as much as I love the work that I do in person in professional sports, I mean, and all of that contract work, that's still trading hours for dollars. And that wasn't, my business model isn't just predicated on that. As an individual, you know, looking out for how is my business going to continue to evolve? That's why, you know, I'm also an author, why I also do speaking engagements, why I also have sponsorships. I have companies that sponsor me, and then, and I hate this term, but I'm sure you can all relate. I'm also
Are you an influencer, Dana?
Yes, you knew the term I was going to use.
Uh-oh.
But, you know, especially as we have, and I have online programs, and, you know, my online programs existed before the pandemic hit. And so as an influencer, it really, I think I get goosebumps as I say that. As an influencer, though, that's how I get out there and I reach the general population. I don't work directly with the general population because, you know, when I am working directly with anyone, it is in professional sports, but I still want to help everyone breathe better, move better, and feel better. I mean, that's my like tagline. So in order to do that, I use the platforms like CNN and my speaking engagements and my online programs and social media to be able to reach them. And so I think it's really important that, you know, you're looking at all of the different avenues and potential revenue streams for your business and not just putting your eggs in one basket. And Beth, I already see you shaking your head because I know that you don't have all of your eggs in one basket. I mean, look at how smart you've been. So, Julian, should we just give it to Beth?
Well, here's the question from one of Beth's good friends.
Awesome.
When the world returns to normal, whatever that is, which of the practices that you adopted during COVID do you plan to continue post-COVID?
Wow. Which of them? Well, I think having a greater line of communication with our athletes is definitely going to continue because it allows us to deliver better service, and it allows us to be a little bit more innovative. I think just throughout the whole thing, though, everything that made me successful and made our gym successful before the pandemic has allowed us to thrive during the pandemic and will allow us to thrive after the pandemic. And I think those things are resiliency and endurance and positivity. I know it sounds kind of kitschy and cliche, but if you don't have those three things, you're not going to survive.
Resilience, positivity, and endurance.
Yep.
That's your mantra. Okay, so do you expect to continue offering classes in the parking lot?
As long as, I mean, if we aren't allowed to open up indoor operations, we're going to keep doing it.
And no, when you're back in your studio.
Oh, I think people really like part of the garden party. So I think we're going to permanently turn our parking lot itself into a little workout space so we can just have bigger classes. I also think people aren't going to, we used to have like 20 people in a class in our like 1,500 square foot studio. People aren't going to want to stand that close together, even when things go back to normal. I think everybody's going to be a little, so we're going to use that extra space. You know, since we've been reopened and doing the outdoor stuff, very few people want to Zoom anymore. It's really interesting. We've actually had to cut back our Zoom schedule quite a bit because people just don't show up anymore because they're just really craving that community and that one-on-one interaction. So I think things will go back to kind of like what we were doing before, but we're going to have a greater focus in our business as well on the like mind side of things, the mindset, the how do I change limiting beliefs? How do I change my behaviors? I think that's going to be cool.
Got it. What do you tell your clients or would-be clients who've been sitting on the sofa, maybe depressed from the pandemic? How do you get them moving or moving again? Person who doesn't have best positivity, who feels like he or she got run over by a truck in 2020. What do any of you three tell that person?
I wrote an article, a whole series of articles actually on that for people who were experiencing that. I think even the fittest among us had to have gone through some ebb and flow over the course of 2020 that maybe, you know, knocked us out of our regular fitness cycle, even if we had access to a garage gym. And so I did a series of 6 articles on rebooting your workout. So returning to your workout, because I mean, we have this tendency to want to punish ourselves. And I'm sure you guys can all attest to this, that it's too many of us have this tendency to want to punish ourselves when we've been bad by not, you know, keeping up with our fitness. And so I tell people how to ease back into it, you know, and paying attention to the things like Beth has brought up mindset quite a few times. So yay, Beth, because it's so important to take care of your mindset, to understand the mindset that got you to the point that you were in. And so that you need to change that in order to get to the point you want to be. And then make your fitness fun. And that's why, and Nicole, I think I mentioned to you that I mentioned Peloton in those articles because people need to pick fitness that's fun for them. And as trainers and coaches, we need to be giving them options and helping them to understand that this isn't punishment. This is part of your lifestyle. This is something that you should look forward to doing. So, and I think they put up a link to that series of articles on CNN. So thank you.
Great. We have one more question, time for one more question. And I want to answer a second question. Matt said that he has a martial arts gym in San Jose that closed down during COVID when his lease expired. And he wants to know when's a good time to reopen in a new space. Matt, the first answer is, what type of lease is available to you? To me, it all starts with the lease. So can you find a new space with a new landlord who's willing to allow you to pay a percentage of your rent, to pay your rent as a percentage of revenue, or to phase in your rent as your inside capacity is increased by the city of San Jose? If you can find a great space with a landlord who has a 10-year view as opposed to a 18-month view, and you have a business model that can afford that space, and you have a community that is ready to buy whatever you're selling, I think the answer is a combination of those 3 things: great lease, strong business model, and a community that wants to buy whatever you're selling. Last question for each of you 3, and let's try and limit it to 1 minute each. How have you seen the fitness consumers' habits change during COVID? And what does that mean for the future of your businesses? How have you seen the fitness consumers' habits change? And what does that mean for the future of your business? Starting with Nicole.
Yeah, I think one of the top trends that we've seen from the Peloton side of things is that people are looking more towards, like I think Beth was hinting at, it was the mindful aspect of working out. Not necessarily getting a huge workout in, but also the meditation or yoga classes, things that you don't need that much equipment to do, but you kind of just need a guided instructor to lead you through. I think a lot of people are looking for that. Maybe it's because it's been a stressful year and a stressful time, but I think a lot of more people are looking to that side of wellness, as well as fitness, to expand into what types of classes they're taking.
Awesome, thank you. Beth, how have you seen consumers' fitness habits change during COVID?
It's really interesting because obviously, like, when the lockdown first happened, everybody was very fearful. They stayed at home, they worked out, especially I can really only talk within my own community. And then when we slowly started to reopen, it was really divided. A lot of people still weren't sure if it was okay to come in or not. And then the other half was like, let's do this, I want to work out. And now I would say, like, probably like 90% of people don't even want to work out at home anymore. They just want to come to the gym and they just want to lift weights. So I think maybe we might see that ebb and flow a little bit until this is over. I think everyone's comfort with this pandemic ebbs and flows, and so does their workout style. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Dana.
I would just say that I've seen a greater importance, like Nicole was saying, put on mental health. I mean, I know you said mindset, but really it was the entryway into mental health. I think the pandemic spotlighted the importance of mental health, and also how it really does go hand in hand with exercise. How we've been, I mean, all of us, I'm sure here, have been spouting how important it is to exercise for your mental health. And, you know, research supports us in this. But I think now the general population is really getting a handle on, that's why they were so mad that they couldn't get to their gyms, right? Because they needed that and they understood the need for it. So I think that's a huge change, a shift in perspective. That's a wonderful shift in perspective, as long as now we have the resources and provide the resources to them to be able to really get the benefits of it.
And I will conclude by adding, I think the biggest shift that we see is greater willingness and acceptance by the fitness consumer to work out remotely. The fact that my mom is a gym rat, been going, I mean, her retirement is 5 days a week in the gym pre-COVID. So not quite the normal senior citizen, but she quickly adapted to YouTube classes, Zoom classes, and has her home gym set up, has her spin bike and her yoga mat, and does all that stuff every day. The fact that I think McKinsey has said it best, that in the last 6 months, this society, and Iggy can probably back me up on this, is the rate of adoption of digital technology by our entire society. What we accomplished in 6 months would have taken us 5 years. As a society, people are buying homes off of Zoom walkthroughs, where banks that used to make us wait 45 minutes to open up a bank account, now you can do that online in 5 minutes. Just the rate of adoption of digital technology across the entire society has not skipped the fitness industry. So if you can buy a home online, sight unseen, you can certainly work out with Dana from Tampa and Beth from Los Angeles and Nicole and Peloton everywhere. And you can work out with any device, anytime you want, wherever you want. That, to me, I think is going to be the legacy of COVID on the fitness industry. On demand, anytime, 24/7. And with that, I want to thank everyone for participating in our panel discussion, and hand it back to our esteemed national chair, Iggy.
Thank you, Julian. 100% agree with you. Necessity is the mother of all invention, and we're definitely seeing that on the technology side. So firstly, thank you, Beth, Dana, Nicole, and Julian for a great discussion. There's going to be a recording of this that we're going to be posting to the Tufts Entrepreneurship Network website. So thank you all for your time and for your insight tonight. Thank you to our participants and our organizers. Just to close, Amy sent out the invitation in the chat to the Slack channel. Feel free to join. There's a fitness entrepreneurship channel where you can continue this discussion. You can also find different city chapters to join: New York, Boston, Austin. There's also channels for Bay Area and Southern California, and we are currently looking for chapter leads in the San Francisco area, in the LA area. So feel free to reach out if you want to step into those roles or if you want to learn more. And finally, keep an eye out in your emails for our holiday event / networking night. It's going to be in mid-December. And we'd love to see you all there to blow off some steam and talk to some jumbos before the year ends. So thank you all again for your time and for participating and for always giving back to Tufts.
And thank you for organizing this, Iggy.
Always. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.